Hey everyone, long time no see. I haven't been making videos for a while. I've been pretty busy with university. Right now I'm on break, so I'll have a little bit of time just to get some videos out there. For now, I am working on a brand new guide series. I don't get me wrong, I liked the last guide series that I had, but there were a few ways that I didn't really like how the videos went. I didn't like the direction they were going in, and I don't feel that they adequately prepared people to play competitively. So with this new guide series, starting from the ground up, I'm going to teach you how to learn. I'm going to run you through routines to learn every tech, and I'm going to teach you some of the more finer intricacies of the game. So I'm hoping to upload these all pretty in short succession. These don't take too long to make, honestly. For now, there's a few things I want to mention before we actually get in to teaching you Quickjump. The first thing being controls. So go into your options here, click on keyboard configuration. If you're playing on controller, that's fine, but if you have a keyboard, I heavily suggest you start using that now. It'll be harder at first, but once you get used to keyboard, it is much better. Just because it's a lot easier to quickly change your direction than it is on controller, and that's important for a lot of the technical setups we'll be going through later. So for controls, to start, you have your standard AWSD for movement. That can stay the same, don't worry about that. Moving camera can stay the same. Jump, you want your first jump to be space, and you want your alternate jump to be equals. This seems silly, but it's really ergonomic with the rest of the buttons that I have set up here. So when you're playing, you're going to want to have your left hand on AWSD with your thumb on space, and then you're going to want to have your right hand on P, minus, and equals. I just went back, my bad. This, like I said it before, but it's very ergonomic. My hands never hurt when I'm playing. It will not do any long-term damage, which I don't think is the case if you use shift for sprinting with your pinky. So that brings me to my next point. You want to have P as your sprint button. Using your right hand for sprint allows you to separate a lot of the tech that we cover into two separate movements, which I find is a lot easier to do. And again, it's just a lot more comfortable this way. Then we have dance. This doesn't seem like it should matter, but dance is actually a really important part of the game because whenever you are moving and you dance, you stop instantly. And this has a lot of uses that I'll be going over in a later video, but you want R and you want minus as your dance buttons. That's everything that matters now. I really don't care about the emote menu or the chat. Have those be whatever you want, but just have P, minus, and equals with your right hand, then A, W, S, and D with your left. Alright, so for this video guide series, I am not going to be scripting anything. Like I'll think about what I'm going to say ahead of time, but I'm not really practicing any scripts. Because A, it's easier for me to make these videos, it takes a lot less time. And B, in my experience with teaching, just going at things casually and having a conversational tone has worked a lot better than trying to be too official about it. And also this way I can play while I talk, which makes it a lot easier to give like visual representation of what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about how to practice effectively, and during this video I'm going to be teaching you Quickjump as an exercise towards practicing efficiently. So anything that I tell you to do, I want you to follow it. I have taught dozens and dozens and dozens of people, and in all of my experience, this is the best way that people learn the quickest and most efficiently. So what you're going to want to do is just come down to a blank level over here, and then we'll get right into it. Alright, so before we get into actually teaching Quickjump, I'm just going to go over a few points on muscle memory and practicing in general, just so you can efficiently learn things and not waste too much time here. So, I've spent thousands and thousands of hours playing the piano throughout my life, and by this point, I've gotten very good at practicing just because, honestly, knowing how to practice efficiently will save you countless hours in the long run. So, with UCH, there are 3 steps to effectively learning a tech skill. The first one I'm going to be talking about is segmenting. So, normally when people who don't know how to practice properly go about learning something, they'll try and do it all at once. This is pretty inefficient because if you're trying to teach your muscles how to do 2 things consecutively, you'll be so worried about doing the first thing that you won't have time to think about the second thing. So, throughout this video while I'm teaching you, I'm going to be splitting everything into segments and getting you to practice them one at a time. Second off, we have repetition. So once you've done your segmenting a bit, Once you have the inputs down, what you need to do is repeat the same thing over and over and over again until you are unable to miss it. Repetition is ultimately the key to having good muscle memory, and also the key to getting good at UCH in any capacity. Lastly, there's variation. A lot of people tend to neglect this step, and you can kind of see it in their play. But when you practice one thing over and over again, you get really good at those inputs, but you get good at those inputs in those circumstances. So say I practice doing this vault 50 times. Say I do it 100 times. I will be so good at it, I won't even miss. But as soon as I say go over here, it's the same input, but it's a totally different thing. So maybe I won't be as successful in doing so. So whenever you're practicing a setup, you're going to want to make a whole bunch of different setups that use the same thing in a different way. This will strengthen the base of your muscle memory, and you will be able to apply what you've learned in different situations more easily. Alright, sorry, I've turned no board on now, and we can actually get to learning quick jumping. So I laid out the 3 steps to practicing, but in all of my videos, don't worry about that too much. I'm just going to be telling you what I want you to do in order. I just wanted you to understand why I'm asking you to do everything in the order that I am. So to start, I want you to set up exactly what I have right here. Take 4 3-long blocks and place them like this and put wires on top. It's important that this pillar is exactly 6 blocks high, because then you can just jump to the top and quick jump over, instead of having to worry about positioning yourself like I'm doing here. Positioning is super important, but that's going to come later down the line when you know a little bit more about quick jumping. So what I want you to do to start, this is really easy. I just want you to stand here, hands off, don't have anything on sprint. I want you to jump up, and then I want you to do a non-sprint jump and die to the wires. It sounds silly, dying to the wires doesn't accomplish very much, but this is part of the segmenting. I want you to just get the idea out of your head that you're always holding sprint, because yes, you will be, but for the sake of quick jumping, you do want to be releasing sprint before you jump. So hold D, hold W so that you slow slide. That's a good habit to get into. Jump up, and then just press space again, do a non-sprint jump. I want you to do this 15 times. Once you've done it 15 times, we can move on to the next step. Feel free to pause the video so you can move along. Now, next, I want you to do the same thing, but I want you to press sprint just a little bit after you jump. Don't worry about going too fast, because otherwise you'll probably just do a sprint jump. So jump, sprint. I'll try and click my keys louder so you can hear the rhythm that I'm doing it in, but I'm not doing it too fast. Just do this 15 times, maybe 20. Once you have that down, we can move to the next step. Again, feel free to pause the video at any point. So, now that you have that down, we're going to try and do it a little faster. So, I want you to jump and then press sprint almost immediately. The second that you've jumped, you should be sprinting. The faster you can do it, the better. It allows you to clear more area. So again, 15 times, do your repetitions, get them in, and then we're going to move on to the next step. I want you to build 2 more 3-long blocks like this and put a wire on top. This seems daunting, but it's honestly not too difficult. This is just to ensure that you have the quick jump inputs pretty well down. So again, just in case I didn't clarify it enough before, the inputs are do a non-sprint jump and then sprint immediately. So I want you to stand here, then you're going to jump, let go of sprint before you jump, and then sprint immediately after. Do this one 20 times. I think it's really important, this step specifically, because if you can't clear 3 wires, then you aren't sprinting fast enough for you to do a lot of the other tech that's necessary. Alright, so once you've done that 20 times, we're going to be moving on to positioning. Positioning is probably one of the most important things in UCH that people rarely actually talk about when they are teaching. They'll teach you how to quick jump, they'll teach you how to do a squeeze jump, they'll do whatever, but they won't explain how positioning works. So in UCH, when you perform a quick jump, you can move 3 blocks up. See how my horse is going from the middle of that line between the 3 long blocks to the very top there? So you want to position yourself before you quick jump, so that your character is just in the middle of those lines. Then you want to quick jump 2 times. Always when you're on the wall, you want to be holding up, because since you're holding up, you'll be slow sliding, which gives you that much more time to react and position yourself accordingly. So I'm going to want you to do this 25 times. I want you to jump up to the very top, slide down till you're at the halfway point, and perform a quick jump. Don't worry about doing the second quick jump, just get focused on positioning yourself just in the right position. So 25 times, I want you to quick jump from the middle to the top. Once you've done that, I want you to try adding a second quick jump in the end. Chaining quick jumps together is definitely very difficult. It's the one blockade that I find a lot of the time when I'm teaching people. It takes longer to get used to. If you can do it early, if you can do it quickly, good for you, that's fantastic. But if it takes you a little longer, don't worry about it. I have taught dozens and dozens of people, and I've seen people learn at totally different speeds, but at the end, everybody's able to get it. So for now, just focus on doing your repetitions, and once you get 25 successes, then we will be able to move on to the next step in variation. So now that you have positioning down pretty well, and now that you have quick jumping down pretty well, what I want you to do is build this setup over here. You have an 8 long block, and then you have a 4 long block here. There's a little gap. So I want you to place this yellow block, or any block of any color, it doesn't really matter. I want you to place it 4 blocks down from the gap. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you to come over to this side. What I want you to do is position yourself so that your character's visual indicator, it's different for every character. For most characters, it's going to be for the feet, but for horse, I am looking between my top leg and my top hand. So once my top leg and top hand line up with that block, I'm going to perform a quick jump, and then I'm going to jump again. This is called a squeeze jump. It's the exact same input as before, just in a little bit of a different circumstance. So just keep practicing, slide all the way up to the top, slide down, and once you reach that point at the very bottom of the yellow block here, just do a quick jump and jump again in short succession. This will get you into the gap. I'd say do this around 25 times, then we can move on to the next step. And I know it's definitely tedious practicing in UCH, doing things 25 times in a row, doing them however many times, but like this is definitely the best way to learn. Normally when I practice, I try and successfully do a setup like 50 times on both sides, and like once I do that one time, I'm good for the rest. Like I'm never gonna miss that tech again. So once you've finished that, I want you to try doing the same thing, but removing the yellow block. This is definitely a lot harder because you don't have anything to tell you where you are. But with enough practice, you'll get really good at estimating how far 4 blocks is above your head. So again, do this 20-25 times, and once you've done that, we will be ready to move on. Next, I want you to set up a very tall wall. 1 second. Doesn't really matter too much how tall it is, you can do whatever you want. And I want you to place an arrow at the bottom. So we've done quick jumping to get over wires, we've done quick jumping to get into a gap, but now we're just going to focus on quick jumping fast and quick jumping consecutively. So in between an arrow shot, I want you to jump up to the wall and just quick jump all the way up to the top. Like that. If you do this with a sprint jump, you're not going to survive. Quick jumping is the only way to jump fast enough to survive. If I do it here with a sprint jump, I'm just going to hit the arrow. It's much faster than I am. I don't have a preference for how many times you do this. Just do this until you really feel comfortable quick jumping fast and quick jumping in a row. It definitely, again, is a hard input to get used to. This is another one of the blockades that whenever I'm teaching someone, it takes them a while to get. But once you can do these three things, I'd say you're pretty good to go with quick jumping. Just make sure that every time you're on a wall, every time you do a wall jump, it's a quick jump. Every single game, this is the real repetition, because obviously doing what we've done here is helping, but it's not enough to really get it into your muscle memory and just have it become habitual. At this point, like, I don't think I ever jump on a wall without quick jumping. Like, even if I'm trying to, it's just so much of a habit that I unintentionally will sprint immediately after doing my jump. That's it for now in terms of quick jumping. Alright, so now that you've learned quick jump, I'm just going to quickly summarize everything that I talked about in the video. Mainly the 3 steps to learning each new tech. So firstly, Again, you had your segmenting like we did here, where you started with the non-sprint jump just to get it into your head that you're not using sprint to start. Then we did quick jumps, we did wider quick jumps, and we did it with positioning, and so on. Just learning everything in simple steps and breaking it down and learning the smallest amount you possibly can at a time. It makes it so much easier for you. And then we had our repetition. I made you do things, say, 15, 25 times. Now, these numbers are totally arbitrary, but it's really important that you have a number of times you want to do something. Having structure to your practice is going to make you astronomically better at it. So if you want to do something until you're good at it, that's fine. But if you stop once you feel comfortable, you won't be getting those extra reps in just to nail down that muscle memory. And also, like, you might be stopping earlier than you reasonably should be. You might think that you have it down, you might not. And also, like, again, the more you do something, the easier it is to commit it to muscle memory. So repetition and structure is really important. And then finally we had our variation, where we started with these vaults here, and then we moved on to the squeeze jump, then we moved on to this arrow thing over here. Again, it's really important to learn all sorts of different types of setups for the same tech, because it will make you much more adaptive in your play. You'll be able to see a setup and just know how to do it. There were a few things that I talked about that I don't really think I stressed enough. So for starters, I talked about it earlier in the video. Change your controls. If you haven't already, I heavily recommend using the same controls that I have. There will be a screenshot of all of my controls in the description. There's a few things that need to be changed that I haven't really gone over yet, like having a second jump button or having 2 dance buttons. I'll explain that in a future video, but for now, just take my word for it. If you learn with the right controls now, it'll be so much easier than having to change it up down the road, because it's so much harder for you to learn tech with the current setups that you have. Nextly, there's slow slide. I did allude to this, but every time you are on the wall, I want you to be holding up. It is ridiculous the difference that it makes in your gameplay. All of the best players will slow slide just as a force of habit. It gives you more time to react to things. It's much easier to time your jumps, and like there's so many setups that I think are downright impossible if you do not slow slide every time you're on the wall. And then lastly, I did mention visual indicators. I don't think I really went over how that works very well. So again, every character does have a different visual indicator. Raccoon, for example, you want to use your top foot as your visual indicator. Horse, you want to use the exact middle between your top hand and your bottom hand. Sheep, you want to use, I think it's your top foot. I will be linking a picture with all of the visual indicators for each animal in the description. But what these really do, these visual indicators show you exactly how many blocks you are below something. So say with the squeeze jump we had earlier, when I say that you are 4 blocks below that yellow gap, I mean that your visual indicator is 4 blocks below. So learn this visual indicator, learn it pretty well. It's really important and it'll help you a lot down the road. So that covers everything I want to talk about today. There are other variations of quick jump that I will be talking about in future videos that are very important to learn, but for now that covers everything. So thanks for watching. See you next time.